Hey guys, it's Robin, RsIslandCrafts, and welcome to my craft room. This is my Whip It Wednesday video where I'm going to show you whatever I've been working on in the craft room this week. And I'm also going to show you what I forgot to show you last week. And since it's the first Wednesday of the month, I'm going to show you all of the yarny projects, things that I've been knitting on and crocheting on also this past month. As usual, we will start out with the Sew With Me Friday tutorial from last week. We made the eyeglass cases. Seemed like many of you enjoyed this video and that several of you are going to be making some sunglass or eyeglass cases in the near future. I think they make really great extra gifts or little gifts for maybe someone at the office or something like that. And I think they're really good too if you're going to be mailing something because they're very lightweight and they're very thin. So they should go for a really reasonable price and you shouldn't have to pay more than what it cost you to make them to ship them. You guys saw the start of these bags last week. They are all finished up and in the shop. Some have already been claimed, but there may be a few left over for you guys to check out. I love the sunflower one with the giant sunflowers, and I really like this one with the purple and the pink because it's got the butterfly, it's got a hummingbird. You can see the big wings of another hummingbird over here. I just really love it. And of course I love purple, and it's got the nice purple lining. And I have a good reason to like each and every one of them, but if I had to choose just one, I think this would be the one that I would choose. Do you guys have a favorite? I pulled out the vinyl. It's hard to see, but there's some vinyl. I had a couple pieces. I was trying to fiddle with the vinyl, like the cross-stitching pouches and stuff. I thought I'd make a small one to start with, but I picked the wrong day to do it because my brain wasn't making the connections to figure out where all the pieces go and how to have everything together. So I went ahead and I set this aside. I also had to order some more zippers. I needed some different lengths to make the different size bags and stuff because I want to make some of the smaller notion pouches where you can keep your markers and pens and scissors and rotary cutters, or if you want to just take a small like English paper piecing project, a little hand sewing, you can have one of the smaller pouches versus getting one of the big giant ones for cross stitching, or you can put your embroidery or your knitting or anything in those bags. So this is getting set aside until the brain is working again, and I'm going to work on the other ones this week coming up. I worked on the block of the month. This is through a Margaret Lewin. I believe she calls it the Springtime Sampler. I've discussed this with you guys. We've been doing this this is our 5th month now. We've discussed this several times. This has been the monthly block of the month. The blocks are actually just any kind of block you can find online. They're not, it's more about the community of sewing together and working on the same project with the same fabric. Even though a lot of these fabrics, like I'm doing a 6-inch block, a 6.5 inch, 6 finished, and other people are doing the 15-inch, which is the original one. So a lot of times it comes to how you cut your fabric, even though everyone's squares are going to be the same. When you have a large print, depending on where it gets cut, your block could look a little bit different. So these are the last of them. There were some issues. So we were doing just simple ones, like 9-patch. On each sheet of paper we got the one with the cutting instructions, the description of the block, you know, where it came from, who, you know, what's the story behind it, the directions. And on the second page, it gave you like a blank sheet where you could like color it in if you wanted to see if you wanted to make your own, and then the colored version of the blocks that we were going to make. And in the written part, I would do all my cutting, and then I would read, okay, for the 6.5 inch block, do this. But sometimes, a lot of times, if you're just doing a 9-patch, I'm like, I can do a 9-patch, so I just sewed a 9-patch. But the problem is sometimes you sewed a 1/4 inch seam, sometimes you sewed a scant quarter, and other times you sewed a generous, and sometimes you did all three within the same block. So I did not read the directions like you're supposed to. So some of my blocks are going to be larger than 6.5. They're going to need to be trimmed down. Some of them will need to be used for something else. like this. So we've got the 25 little squares. This one was supposed to be a generous 1/4 inch. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of trimming. Since this is going to be a lap quilt for me to snuggle up with on the couch, it's not gonna matter if I trim these down and I don't have exact squares, because then I can just look at it as it's a 9 patch with a border, right? A scrappy squared border all the way around it. So this is just gonna have to get trimmed down. I'll line everything up in the center so that all of the bordering squares are cut down evenly. This one is pretty close, just trimming off a little bit of 1/8 of an inch around it. It's not going to affect too much. And then I caught on about this whole reading thing when you read the directions. So on this one, I had to use a generous 1/4 inch on the 9 patches, but so with a regular 1/4 inch with the actual squares, the 2.5 inch squares. As you can see, my 9 patches are wonky 9 patches, but I like them. I still have all of the colors going in the right direction, and everything has, you know, it has all its little diagonals, so it's perfectly fine. Even though my 9 patches ended up a little wonky, it still, whole thing came out 6.5 inches, so we're perfectly fine, right? Now this was the one that the directions, we got a, oops, hold on, the directions aren't quite right. I'd already cut out the fabric. Now this is for the 15-inch square. The fabric you cut out for, they would say for a 15-inch square, cut 3 pieces at 6 inches, and then for a 6-inch square, cut 3 pieces at 1 inch, or whatever it is, you know, basic, just gibberish there. So you had the different sizes in parentheses. I'm sure you guys have seen that in patterns. So I'd already gone ahead and cut everything out, but I hadn't stitched it yet, and I got the direction correction. But I thought, I really like the 16 patch on point with the burgundies there and everything like that, and I already cut the fabric, so why waste it? I went ahead and stitched it together. It is definitely more than 6 inches. This would not be possible to square it up, of course, and use it, but I decided to go ahead and keep it anyways, because I can turn this, I can put it into the back of the quilt. I can go ahead and, you know, to keep it with all the same fabrics. By the way, this is the Robin Pickin lines for Moda Fabric. The fabric line is Painted Meadows, and it's really, really pretty fabric. It's like it has just enough of the non-florally type to balance out all of these big, bold prints and colors. So I go ahead, I made it. I'm going to go ahead and keep that and use it for something. I could turn it into a little pouch or something like that. And then I went ahead and I made the proper one. I haven't not trimmed down anything yet, because, well, first of all, this one I'll just go ahead and match up all of the points to make sure I have a 1/4 inch for the seam allowance and a little extra. Then I'll trim this all up. But I want to wait until I had all of them done to make sure that I didn't have any that were 6 inches versus 6.5 or 6 1/4 or something. That way everyone can get trimmed down to the same size. I believe everyone is right on the mark for 6.5 or just a little bit above. And then I need to go ahead and make some extra. I believe I'm going to need to put a whole column on it just to make it that much wider, or I can add extra, I can use more borders or something like that. But I think I'm going to go ahead and make the extra row of a variety of squares, whichever ones I find that are the quickest, the easiest, and the ones I like the most. So I'll be pulling in the different fabrics that I really enjoy. I have everything in a binder here. It was suggested that we put everything in a binder to keep it all organized. Over on Patreon, this is going to be one of the videos I'm going to be doing this month, discussing all about the binder and the different system that I use in addition to the way it was suggested to us. So let's see what block number 13 is actually called. Like I said, it's called Greek something or another. So it's simply called the Greek square block. This one is block number 20. The colors I like is block number 13. So I really like the way that these colors went together, so this was a really good choice. Margaret chose well on how to put these colors together. This one is definitely, even though you have some different type of florally things in there, I don't mind the vines with the little berries on it, and I really like these colors. And this one I think is really like the boldest one. This one pops the most, so I might go ahead and make more of them just like this, or make other blocks in these color combinations so that I won't see all of these, but I can see a variety of those colors and just get it all mixed up together. So for someone who was way behind and hadn't really done hardly any blocks, I think I made 5 of them as of like January, and then last month I went ahead and, you know, I knuckled down and got these all done, and then now I've gotten into February. So now we're just gonna wait till the new information comes out after the 20th of the month. So sometime after March 20th, Margaret will put up a video and we'll be able to see the video. Actually, if you go over to her channel, you can watch all of these blocks being made. She just doesn't give the actual measurements, and you won't be able to, you won't see the layout or anything, and probably until March when she shows us the layout. So even though you're not part of the block of the month, you can go over there and pick out squares you like. As I said, most of these squares I've seen online already. I may not have seen, I even seen this one. So it all comes down to just finding the measurements for the blocks that you like and putting them into a quilt. We're also going to be doing sashing and whatever the little cornerstones. The cornerstones are at the 4 corners of the quilt. So whatever that little square is on the sashing, I think it has something to do with like stopping or stop sign or whatever they're called. One of you will tell me down in the comments on what they're called. So we're going to be doing sashing, and we're going to do the little, I'm going to call it cornerstones for now, on all 4 corners. Everything's going to get sashed. We're going to do a thin border and then a wide border. And the large scale print, larger than this one, I believe, is the one we're going to be using for the big wide border. So that's going to be really nice. I think it's in, let me see if I can find it. So we use a similar fabric and color, or we use this one. Let me see if I cut into this one. I think we use a little bit of everything in all the blocks just to pull it all together so that no color is just sitting alone. But I believe this is going to be for our last wide border. I believe this one is going to be for our sashing, and this one's going to be for the cornerstones and corner, whatever they are called. And then, you know me, I'm just going to make my binding is going to be totally scrappy. Now, since I'm making the 6.5-inch squares versus the 15, I will have fabric left over. We were chatting on Facebook group, because Margaret has a Facebook group for her channel and her shop and stuff. And they were all chatting that a lot of them had quite a bit of fabric left. And we were warned to be really careful when cutting out the blocks because there wasn't going to be much fabric left. So everyone was a little bit nervous that they have so much left. But I'm going to go ahead and use mine for the extra squares. I will probably change up a little bit, something here or there. Maybe I might go narrower with my sashing. I might go wider. I might add some extra skinny borders just to pop more of that green in that I like, and the red. And I'm definitely going to use it for the back and then the scrappy binding. So that's going to be really fun. And I think I might actually, no, I'm not going to hand stitch the binding down. That's going to get machine stitched down. Because if I'm going to be using it here at the house, it's got to be able to go through the washer repetitively. And while my hand stitching on the binding is great, I don't have a problem with it. When I do a quilt that's going to be washed over and over again, I definitely like to have that extra security of the machine. Kind of gives it that extra strength. I do enjoy hand stitching the binding down on like wall hangings and such like that. And then the only other fabric thing that I did before we get into the yarn stuff is I made, if you go over to my Instagram, you'll be able to see them. I'll pop a picture up here, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be all crazy. I made some, these are thank you cards. They're already addressed, and I'm going to be popping them in the mail as soon as I'm done with this video. These are the envelopes that I made previously. And I haven't sent them out to be tested yet, so I basically just stuck Scotch tape all over them to hold them down. I'm not sure. Some of them I receive, they just have double-sided tape. Some of them have just washi tape closing it. But some of these are going overseas, and I wanted to make sure that they're going to get stuck really good. Like even this right here is starting to bother me, so I will possibly go through and put more tape down. I'm a really big tape person. It's something my grandmother taught me to make sure everything's really secure. Tape the heck out of it. So all of these have been tape closed. But what I did is I made, these are the envelopes, as I said, I made before. And then I made scrappy cards to go inside of them. And I just took some scrap fabric and I made the little thingy to go on it and, you know, stitches. One day I will go ahead and make a video to show you how I made these when I go back and make a bunch more. So these are all going to go out into the mail to their recipients today. So those of you that I said to expect a thank you card, you'll be getting one in the mail soon. And for those of my patrons who I discussed being a tester to see how my envelopes survive through the mail. Don't worry, you guys are going to be coming soon, hopefully in March, and I'm going to use the different closures on yours. Like these are just scotch taped really, really well, so I'm not worried as much about these coming undone. But I want to try the different things like the washi tape and the two different types of double stick tape, and I've glued some of these, so I will do a video to let you guys know who's getting what, so you can look out for it and to see what your envelope looks like, and then that's gonna be fun. Okay, now to the Yarny. I'm not gonna dump this bag out because then I'd have to pick it all up, but I am getting close to the end of my tacos. I'm making 12 of them for an order, and I think I have 2 or 3 shells, and then I just need to make the rest of the shells. Everything else is crocheted and ready to go. So once I get the shells made, then it'll just be, I mean, it's taken me a while to make each of these. Like it took me one night, take a couple hours just to do the lettuce, but probably part of that was I was getting bored and I kept dozing off. But I can do a shell in just a night watching TV, you know, for about an hour or so. So you figure if I have 2, then I got another 10 nights. But putting them together, it's probably going to take me an hour or more to put each one together, because you have to get it all together. You have to fiddle with it to make it right. You have to put the eyeballs in, the stuffing in. You got to weave in all the ends and trim it. So a lot of times when you have pieces in crochet, it takes longer to put it together than it actually did to crochet the piece. I have worked a little bit on my washcloth. I have not even finished one. I think this is like the same one all month. I am decreasing on it, so we are getting there. I am still using the same yarn. I will have a little bit left over for a partial for something else, the sugar and cream. I've been calling it celery. It is lime stripes. I worked here and there. Most things got worked on earlier in the month, but I tried to stick with mostly working on the tacos and then another project I'll show you. But I did work a little bit on the fun new blanket that I'm working on. So I was right here last time you saw it, so I did put a few more colors on and played with it a little bit. I have this fun color on. It's got a little bit of everything in there. So one of you smart people suggested when I was talking about this before and how I was just going to make all the strips, then I wasn't sure should I make 2 or 1 or what, suggested that I can easily still make 1 and add the second one on here and just make them in sets of 2, and then it'll still be very portable. As this is getting on a little bit further, I wanted to go ahead and just start adding the second one on just so I can get a look at it and see what it looks like. You don't want to make 20 of these strips and then start on the second one and figure out that you either can't do it or don't like the way it looks. So before I get too far going, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm pretty sure that because it's basically a herringbone, that I'm going to like it because I love that scrappy style and that look. I have several long-term projects that are just sitting by the side waiting for me to come back to them, and they've been screaming my name. So I'm trying to get through these projects. Well, I mean, Robbie socks, I'm always going to be knitting on Robbie socks, but I tried not to knit on them too much because these are for Christmas, but this is what got me in trouble last year. Is I didn't work on it steady throughout the year because of everything else I was doing and handling with Rob and all that. So I'm trying to be a little bit more careful this year and actually work on them more. So I'm only on the first sock. I was right here, so I did put a good chunk on it still. I haven't started the second sock. I decided I'm going to knit the first one all the way up to the heel. And then I'll pick up the second one and knit it to the same spot, maybe past the heel, and then I'll finish them off. Because I was doing like the toe on one and toe on the other. Knit on here, knit on there. And I wanted to see more progress and see how fast just one sock would go. So right now, about halfway up the foot, I believe I do about like 80 rounds for his, and right now I'm at like 40 something, 42 maybe. And this is that fun yarn, that Mani Petty, where both balls look different, either though they're the same. It's just how they were wound off of the machine when Lion Brand made them. So I'm really just looking forward to seeing what all of these orange sunset colors look like in here. What do they call this color? Oh yeah, they call it mittens. I'm calling it sunset. I don't usually rename things, but I don't know. It's not mittens, right? Now the last knitting project is the shawl. For those of you who may not have seen it or haven't seen it in a while, this is the Summer Rain Shawl by Leah Tybalt. It's a black and white, so there we go. This is one of the shawls that you knit it normally, but you wear it backwards so that you could, based on the knitting techniques, I'm assuming it was easier to go ahead and knit the raindrops coming down on the purl side versus on the knit side, because that allows you to get these ridges that will define the drop. See how they have those little ridges around it? I'll show you on the actual shawl in a second. But you can't really get that as easily on the knit side. This is just one of the things that when you do decreases and increases and such, and you put them all together, that's what it looks like. I am on the last section. It took 2 balls to make this. I am down to this part. I am still freaking out that I'm going to have enough yarn, but I'm feeling a little bit better about it. You're supposed to knit down until you only have 7 stitches left. But if I'm running out of yarn and I have 10 stitches left, is it really going to be that big of a deal? I don't think so. Before I make any major decisions, of course, I will talk to my friend who has requested this. Let's show you the proper side first. I was here. So I'm able to make more progress on this now because the rows are just so much shorter. I started out with over 400 stitches and now I'm down to about, last I counted a few rows back, there was probably about 35 stitches on each side, so maybe I'm down to about 30 now. And there you can see those raindrops coming down. Because of the type of yarn this is a woolly yarn. This is Milo from Manos del Uruguay. Let's see. It's a 65% merino wool, 35% linen. You need to have, if you have just linen, a linen sweater or a shawl, as you wear it, as the day goes by, the linen will tend to stretch and it'll drag down. But if you go ahead and throw some of that merino in, it will still stretch because of both of those fibers. But between the two of them together, they'll get a nice... Wool yarn is like fish scales, they say, because it has all the barbs on it. And I always think of it more like a fishing hook. You know, you put a fishing hook in, it goes in easy, but if you take it out, it has all those barbs on it. So either way, how you look at it, maybe like if you've seen human hair under a microscope, it has those scales and barbs on it. So the wool for a sheep is basically the same way. So they will grab and hold on to each other, so that wool will hold the linen more and keep it from stretching. So while the linen, I'm going to make up numbers here. If the linen stretches, let's say 25%, and the wool only stretches, say 8%, it'll balance each other out and it'll keep it from being too much. So it gives you that nice feel of the linen and the wool together. It has a nice soft feel to it, although it still at the same time feels very softly rustic, if that makes sense at all. Once it has its little bath and my friend goes ahead and blocks it, it's going to be a nice full length shawl. I would say it's probably going to go mid back, if not longer. It all depends on how aggressively she blocks it. So right now it is if I just give it a little bit of a stretch, so right now it's probably about 22, 23 inches long. So that is a really nice size shawl. Plus, as I said, with the blocking, all of this lace work down here will block out really nice. You can block it in either direction. And then I always show you it because I love it from the other side. This is why you don't see it from this side, because you don't see those raindrops. You just see that little bit of a lace texture and stuff, and it doesn't actually resemble raindrops. But you can wear it either way. I just love a shawl that has a nice spine that goes down it like that. There's a bit of a close-up of the yarn. I think it's green with a tint. It's all different shades of green, but I think it has a blue base to it, because a lot of times when I see it, it looks a little bit blue to me based on whatever lighting I am sitting in at the time. So I'm working on this, and this is my goal, to have this finished by the end of March. At least I like knitting from the top down, because you knit until you run out of yarn, and when you run out of yarn, the shawl's done. You either buy more yarn, put a different color in, or your shawl is done. But when you start out at the bottom and knit up, sometimes because you got to get it to a certain point on the back of your neck, you want to have it a certain way based on the design and stuff. So you might have to either bring in an additional yarn that way, or get a new ball. But this way, when I get to the end, I'm only casting off 7 stitches. When you knit from the shoulders down, I would have been casting off close to 500 stitches, and there's many shawls that you cast off 1,000 stitches. Thankfully, there's some simple techniques you can do. Either you can do it the hard way and put picots and put ruffles and ridges and make it really complex because it's beautiful. And then there's a little trick that you can do with a crochet hook that makes it cast off quicker, and also if you're running out of yarn. So sometimes people will bring in a different color green to cast off at the bottom if they run out of yarn. It's not noticeable, it all works together. But those are a little bit of the traits, if you're not a knitter, that are different with different types of shawls. Shawls are really fun to knit because you can adjust them and change them as you need to, or just leave them as the pattern goes. I've seen many people, when they design shawls, they have kind of an idea, but they just design it as they go. So you can have this type of stitch here and add in another stitch there. Oh, let's change it up and put some more stitches down there. As long as the numbers work out for you, then you can do that. If you're going to be a knitter that you like to adjust things as you go, like I do with quilts, then it's really good to have a stitch dictionary so that you can do that. Me, I just follow the pattern. Either I take something complicated and make it easier. I never take anything easier and make it complicated. I received a Happy St. Patrick's Day thank you belated birthday card. Nice and sparkly and fun. I'm not going to show you the inside because it has all the personal stuff in there. But I did receive these stitch markers. I'm calling them stitch markers. They're charms. They're the different sewing charms. I like this tomato because it's orange, so it actually looks like a pumpkin. So it's not even like the color of the camera being off. It's actually orange. This one says handmade with love. You've got your needle and your thread, and you've got your pincushion, your thimble, your scissors, and your sewing machine. So these will probably either become charms for a bag, or they're going to be stitch markers. I have been hunting around my craft room so that I can make a video and actually have stitch markers also on how to make the knitted stitch markers that I like. I have almost all of the supplies. I think the only thing I'm missing 1 or 2 things, and I really don't want to go and buy it again unless I absolutely have to, because every time you buy something, you always find what you were looking for. So I'm getting ready to do, I think since I've been on this YouTube channel, I've probably redone my location or my craft room maybe 5 times, which is why I can't find the supplies that I need. I did find all of my tools, so that is going to be good. I got all the pliers and stuff, so that's the big part. The rest I'll either end up having to purchase or I will find it. Getting ready to do a big run around again, so we'll see what happens. So that is what I've been working on in the craft room this week. Have you guys been working on anything? What I want to know is, has anyone started making Christmas stuff yet? Or do you guys tend to wait until about July to start doing that? I think about it a lot, and I've been showing you guys a lot of quick little projects that could go for Christmas gifts, to go in that bonus basket that I'm always talking about, that bowl by the front door, where if you have a drop-in guest and you want to just give them something handmade, and so you have that bowl full of little things, or for your office workers that you don't really know, but you're all doing a gift exchange, so you have those little gifts already made. But beyond that, I have not thought too much about Christmas. I'm kind of living in the here and now. I'm kind of drowning in the here and now. You guys see all my projects. I got a lot going on. So next week, I'm going to start working on those vinyl cross-stitch bags. I should be receiving the new zippers, and everything I need should be coming in probably while you're watching this video. My mailman will bring it by for me, which will be very sweet. Thank you all for reminding me last week that it is a law that you have to have an enclosure around a pool. I'm too busy watching them do the pool and surprised at how huge this thing is and how little backyard they have that I forgot it's state law, you have to either have a screened-in lanai enclosure type thing for your pool, or you have to have a fence around your yard. I'm kind of voting for the fence. The neighbor on this side has a wooden fence. The neighbor on this side has a chain link fence, but she has this tropical paradise where she has all kinds of different trees and stuff, and I planted some vining flowers that went all over the fence because she has some dogs, and it's not like the dogs are a problem. It's more that it bothers her when her dogs bark at me. But I kind of feel bad because I had to stop what I was doing, because she has this gorgeous German Shepherd and then this golden retriever, I believe, some golden retriever colored type, gorgeous little yellow dog. It's a puppy. It's not a year old yet. I think it's maybe 6 or 9 months old. So they have the German Shepherd over there. He's a few years old. He's well trained. He's actually been trained to be a helper dog, type of a service dog for her, which is wonderful. But he's a puppy. I don't care how old that dog gets. He is a puppy. And he comes over. It's a 4-foot fence, chain link. I have a garden, a flower bed right next to it. So I'll be weeding over there, and Jax will come up running up, and he'll just jump on the fence, and he'll just like bark at the top of my head. So of course I fall over on my butt and I scream, because I always scream when I get startled. And she thinks like Jax is causing trouble. No, because when Jax comes out and starts barking, I bark back at him and I talk to him, and I'm an instigator, so I've had to stop being an instigator with poor Jax. But anyways, they've got that all covered up, so it's pretty good. We also decided that I'm just going to park my chair in the backyard. I'll put on some music, or I'll put on an audiobook. I'll bring the dog out. I'll bring out my knitting, and I'll get something, a little bit of a drink or something, and I'll just sit in the chair and watch them build a house. So maybe eventually they'll get scared and tired of looking at the crazy lady in her backyard, and they'll put up a fence. I can always hope, right? I just find it weird that, I mean, we've been in this house for over 17 years now, and there's never been anyone in the backyard. There's always been the 3 empty lots, and then there was a road, and then there was a row of empty lots, and then there was some houses. So unless you have good eyesight, you basically need binoculars to see from my backyard to someone else's backyard. So we've always been able to picnic back there. We've been able to just sit underneath when we had trees before the hurricanes knocked them down. You know, we'd sit out in the back and with a picnic table and just chat. We had a fire out there. So now it's just kind of weird that I'll be like on display, or they'll be on display, because while I'm not nosy, I'm very, very curious. So if I'm out in my backyard and you're doing something 20 feet away from me, I'm gonna look. I'm gonna look. I can't help myself. I'm curious. Put up a fence, people, right? All right, guys, that's it for me. I hope you guys are getting some extra crafting time this week. I've been hearing rumors that spring is right around the corner. Some of you guys are unfortunately buried in snow and rain and sleet and ice and all of the other things that come with the change of seasons. But some of you are getting hopeful because your temperatures are starting to rise. You're starting to think about putting up a garden, or what you're going to do for your vegetable garden and your flowers. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I did pick up all those different flower seeds and everything, so I still have to finish weeding all around. I just don't want to plant the flowers yet until we're getting a little bit closer to some rain, because otherwise I have to hand water them, which means I have to buy a new hose because my hose won't reach all the way around. I feel very dramatic. I always have something. But then at the same time, if we were all sitting around the table chatting and working on our craft projects and showing off our works in progress and stuff, there'd be someone else would be like, yeah, Robin, our hose blew out last winter. We need to get a new hose too. I just don't want to go to the store and deal with it, or I'm just being lazy, or too many other things to deal with. So why I feel like I'm rambling and being a whiner is just because I'm all alone and you guys aren't sitting here with me. Though I can hear you guys laughing. I know what you're doing on the other side of the camera. All right, guys, you guys have a great week, and I will see you next week. Bye.